First news topic of the week, and I don't know, is this a PSA? I'm not sure, but basically, the games business's Chris String has basically come out to say what pretty much everyone in the gaming journalism community has kind of already known or can't talk about because they're under NDA or whatever. I don't know. But Chris is saying that there's going to be no Switch 2 reviews at launch, or very limited Switch 2 reviews at launch. Nintendo aren't going to be releasing review units, seemingly. This is unconfirmed. Just from my perspective, full transparency, I've not heard anything from Nintendo, but this has been discussed amongst journalism circuit in the sort of journalism circuit for, I don't know, at least 6 weeks now, I think. Quick supporter question here from Alan. Hi guys, I'm shocked DF isn't getting any Switch 2s and games to review before release. They'll hand them to influencers like candy, though. No, I don't think they will.
I don't think they will.
Everyone will be waiting for the DF reviews. But after the full specs, does Nintendo have something to hide? I'm concerned that Cyberpunk has already pushed the Switch 2 as far as it can go. My hype's been tempered. I do think you kind of do need reviews at launch. Chris String is saying that Nintendo is putting out a full day one patch, which is going to radically change the system, apparently. There is precedent for this. It happened with the Wii U, but we did get review units for that. John, thoughts?
Oh man, happening with the Wii U, that's a great way to start the new generation, isn't it? What a comparison. You're right, though. But I actually think, so thinking about it, Nintendo is in a very strong position right now. And as we've seen over time, when they're in a strong position, they behave as if they don't need anyone, essentially. And when they're in a position of weakness, as with the Wii U, they're extremely forthcoming. That's pretty typical. Sony's done that too, for sure. And I guess Microsoft, I mean, that's just what companies do, right? But in this case, I actually think the biggest quote unquote losers here are the third parties, because this effectively means, so everybody's going to cover Mario Kart World. It's a big game. It's going to sell like crazy. Nintendo is still going to sell a lot of Switch 2s. I think Nintendo itself has nothing to worry about with this. It doesn't matter to them. They don't care. But third party games, like if these come in so close to launch, you can imagine that getting coverage out is going to be, both the coverage might be sloppy. It's going to be tough to do it properly, I think. And secondly, they're going to focus on probably the big stuff first, like Mario Kart. And a lot of the third-party games are probably going to get left on the wayside. So when you have consumers going in to buy these games, they're going to want to know, like, wait, is Cyberpunk actually okay on the Switch? Is the Street Fighter 6 port any good? Like, there's not going to be an easy way to know that on day one. And that kind of is unfortunate, right? Because that could actually turn people away. And not to mention all the other titles, and smaller titles especially. There's, like, this just massively decreases the potential for games getting reviewed at all. Because by the time reviewers can catch up and different media, not just media, but like influencers and everything catch up, it's very likely that a lot of these games would have slipped between the cracks and never get coverage. So Nintendo is kind of throwing their partners under the bus in a way, I would feel, because it behooves them to have people talking about their games in the online space. And that's basically not going to happen the way it might normally. At least, and mainly just because like people are going to be focused on the big ones first, I think. So that's definitely a risk. So I don't know. At the same time, I also appreciate in a weird sort of way that it ensures that the playing field's level for all of us, right? Because like there's
yes, that's obviously when I first started to hear all of these rumors that there aren't going to be any review units. First of all, I know that a lot of our colleagues in the industry are going to be hurting from that, right? Because they're expecting the traffic from it. From the Digital Foundry perspective, I never expect anything. I don't, feel any kind of, we're not guaranteed to get units at all. So from my perspective, it was like, okay, this is happening. It doesn't really change my plans at all. And in fact, everybody's on a level playing field. I think there probably will be one or two sort of opportunities that are sort of Nintendo approved, so to speak, pre-launch, possibly. I'm not sure about that. As I said, I've not heard anything from Nintendo since the London event that we went to. So maybe there will be something about that. You're quite right about the third parties, though, John. That is a big concern. And I have to wonder, this day one update that is apparently being discussed, is that actually going to change the function of third-party games at all? I can't see how it would. So, you could have envisaged a scenario where units could have been distributed with limitations under NDA, which is something that happens all the time.
So looking at the list, though, in addition to that being a concern, there's actually a gigantic number of third-party games launching on day one. And Nintendo games are getting updated, I guess. I'm not sure about the exact date, but a lot of them seem to be getting like those updates, right? So people are going to be revisiting games like Zelda, right? So I actually think, even though they only have stuff like Mario Kart World as like their big introductory game, they also have updates for all the classic games already on Switch, which is what I feel a lot of the coverage will be focused on, which only makes the problem worse, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to get through. I mean, there's a reason I did 4 pre-orders, just to make sure we get one. and to distribute amongst the team if more than one comes through. But yeah, I mean, we just don't really know. Well, we're like literally weeks away from launch, and we have no real idea of what our coverage plans are going to be. That's the sort of bottom line there.
No,
I mean, Alex, doesn't affect you at all.
No, thankfully. But I can already see a good reason why Nintendo does this from like a cynic's perspective. Not even just like they're arrogant and they think they're going to sell a bajillion amounts, but we already know that there's like blind spots in the launch of this thing in terms of like backwards compatibility coverage. We already have understandings, like we've seen the game's preview, some run and look better than others, right? Like in terms of the third-party catalog. Like these are all things that the enthusiasts that is out there is potentially interested in it. But the first people who will be getting this will be the people who stand in line for like 72 hours. And they post, glowing reviews.
Hopefully not 72 hours.
I'm being a little bit flippant here, but I'm just saying, the people who are going to have the first impressions are probably going to be the most inaccurate, and that only is really a good thing for Nintendo. Like, they're going to be people who already wanted this thing and were convinced about it long before it was even announced, right? And I feel like the more critical lens that takes more time to look at an object and review it will be coming a good deal after the fact. And that won't tarnish their launch at all in any capacity. For example, like when we got the PS5 back in the day, we knew it didn't have VRR, right? Before, everything else. And that was a big thing, I think, because Xbox Series X had VRR. And that was already a difference we were seeing between the products on like a technical level. But we were also seeing other aspects that were like negative. Like we were seeing like that DMC5 was running better on like PlayStation 5, for example. And all these like little things that made the launch kind of interesting, and you could like differentiate between the products better. But without that ability to like have anything built up for the launch, people aren't going to have actually a good idea how it is. And I think that isn't... Right. I get why they're doing it, but... Also, to me, it doesn't speak of great confidence in a product to not give out review units. But that is just my humble opinion.
Okay, yeah. So, I think from Nintendo's perspective, there's probably nothing to lose overall because, well, it's going to be a new console that's eagerly awaited. It's going to sell out. That's the bottom line. But at the same time, every new console sells out. There's always a more demand than there is supply at launch. So, the bottom line, though, is that informed opinion about the product is going to be lacking around launch day, unless there's some sort of massive change in the next couple of weeks. And I don't think that's particularly great. But as I said, I was kind of expecting it. Any final thoughts there, John?
Yeah, it's So, Alex, you were saying that the hardcore will get it first, and I think you're right. But I also think in this day and age, negative coverage really seems to sell. So there's an equally high possibility of specific types of channels picking this up and just poking holes in it as fast as possible, right? And so I don't necessarily think that it benefits Nintendo to have just this kind of word of mouth stuff happening. I don't know. I'm not sure it's necessarily beneficial nor harmful, but it could go either way depending on who's out there saying stuff about it early on. It's just that very unknown factor.
Well, it's the same with any kind of product launch, really. But, the point is that the audience out there aren't going to be able to be fully informed. I think the bottom line is that when you want to buy a product, you want a diversity of opinion. And
yes,
people are going to be put into a really difficult position here because you may have pre-ordered it. You can't cancel your pre-order if you don't like what the reviews are saying, because there aren't going to be any reviews. Similarly, if you wait for a review to buy, chances are that the thing will be sold out before you actually see the reviews. So yes, it's not a great position for the end user to be in, is it? Obviously, we'll be tracking this as and when further news emerges. But in terms of our holding pattern, hasn't really changed, and it's the same for every console launch. I mean, I always get in several pre-orders. I don't assume that we're going to be releasing hardware because it's a bit presumptuous, and we need the hardware, so I order it. And if the hardware does come through, I cancel the pre-orders. But at this point, I think we're probably going to be using those pre-orders. But anything changes and we're allowed to say something, we'll let you know.